All right. So today we've got a lot loaded in here for you. We are talking about tight recruiting budget as a question mark, how to optimize for maximum effect. So this is being presented by Eightfold, one of ATAP's key sponsoring partners. And I've got two great folks here with me today. I've got Todd Raphael, who is the marketing content manager of Eightfold, and Mr. James Ellis, who's author of Talent Chooses You, and also the host of the Talent Cast Employer Brand Headlines. James, Todd, welcome. We've got a lot to cover today. Where would you like to start?
There's always the beginning. That always makes things more clear. Why don't we just jump in? We'll do some quickie introductions. You know what? I'm gonna share my screen. What the heck? Maybe. It's not letting me. Okay, we'll move along. Why don't you just jump to the next slide? No big deal. There we go. That's somebody's shining face in Todd. That's right. Todd is marketing content manager of Eightfold. He and I have known each other for a while. If you don't know Todd, I don't understand why he only just ran ERE for a couple of years. It's only, you know, a big name, and he's probably met all of you 17 times. And I'm James Ellis. I've written books. I am just an absolute employer brand nerd. I know I'm an employer brand nerd because if you Google the phrase employer brand nerd, I show up anywhere from 4 to 7 times on the first page of search results. So if Google says it's a thing, it's got to be true. So let's jump to the next slide. So here's the deal. This is just a typical kind of chart of how you might approach or how you might consider your sourcing, right? You get a lot of stuff from direct, you get some stuff from referrals, you get some people coming in through the job boards, you get some people coming in through recruitment marketing, and obviously there's like 17,000 ways to slice the old recruitment marketing section. And then you've got outsourcing, which of course is the most expensive, right? You know, when someone comes in and says, hey, we're gonna outsource all this stuff and we can charge you 20% of their first year hire, that's incredibly expensive. So, but this is pretty common, right? There's a good mix. You're not really overextended on one or the other, but they're very different values, not just in terms of what they bring to you, but also in their relative cost. So for example, yes, that outsourcing person might have a candidate for you immediately, and that might save you some time, but it's gonna cost you, it's gonna be dear. Referrals aren't free. There's probably a bonus associated with it, but we know that there's great talent there. And if we jump to the next slide, if we click on this, you'll see that the goal here, whoops, what happened? There we go. The goal here is to change some of those numbers. We want to increase the things that are cheap and decrease the things that are expensive. So we want to increase direct, we want to increase referrals, but we want to squeeze down some of the things that have some costs associated with it. We go to the next slide. Here's a good example of what we should be shooting for. Where direct is twice as much of what we're doing. People want to work for us. People are coming to us. People see us as attractive employers. We don't have to beg them to please apply, please consider us, please look at our Facebook page or whatever the heck we beg them to do. That we have great referrals. The people who work here love working here enough that they say, this is an amazing place and I want my best friends to work here too, and they increase referrals. That allows us to squeeze job boards, recruitment, marketing, and outsourcing quite a bit. And we want to squeeze outsourcing the most, but hey, you can't always predict the future. So the way we make this happen isn't simply to say, I want more direct hires, because that's like me saying, I want to be taller. It's not gonna play very well. So if we go to the next slide, we have the standard recruiting funnel, right? We want to look at the funnel and see all the different ways we can squeeze more value out of the entire interviewing process, the entire recruiting process, to make those changes happen. So this is a standard, funnel, right? You've seen this about a bajillion times. Some of you literally see this every single day when you log into your HRIS system, when you log into whatever it is to show your recruiters how they're doing and where their candidates are. The goal, because the funnel is designed the way it is, the assumption is all hires come from new people. It's coming from the outside. They see your ad, they see your job board. A third-party candidate brings somebody in, or they're all coming from outside. And that's not necessarily the way it has to be. In fact, if we kind of open our perspective a bit and see the bigger funnel, you can see a lot of value here. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that if we look above the funnel, there are a couple of things that happen before you actually start driving that recruitment funnel. First, there has to be a business need. And second, the machinations of HR and comp and ben and recruiting and leveling, all that stuff have to happen before someone says, yes, that's a rec and you're allowed to put it out there into the world where someone can become aware of it. The trick is, if we just assume that our world only exists from awareness to hire, we miss huge opportunities. In fact, the first opportunity we miss is that we are just order takers. We just let HR and the business manager say, that's the role I want you to look for. I want you to find a purple unicorn. I want them to have 17 years experience in TikTok, right? And to which some people are laughing and some people are confused. You want them to be an executive leader, but you want them to do it for $20,000 a year. These are impossible things. But if you're just focused on the recruitment funnel, you're missing on the chance to really shape the kind of recs that come down the pipe. And you end up just being order takers. And that's really no way for a recruiter to be. You're better than that. So we're going to help you with that. Next slide. And if you look below that funnel, you can see all the different steps in a kind of hiring employee life cycle, right? Once they're hired, they're onboarded, they're developed, they grow, they become better employees, maybe they get promoted, whatever. Then they become at a stage where they feel like advocating, or they want to say great things about the company. They want to bring in referrals. They want to tell the world why they love working for you. Should they leave, they become alumni. They are people who used to work for you, and hopefully you haven't slammed the door on them and said bad names about them on their way out the door, that they still want to say nice things about you, that they look fondly to their experience of working with you so that they can tell the world. And finally, there's boomerangs. That is alumni who have left and have now a couple years later have decided, you know what, I bet I can come back. I bet now is the time to come back. And all these stages, top and bottom, above and below the funnel, are great places for you to get better sources of candidates. All we have to do is open our eyes a bit. Next slide. So here's the whole funnel. And let's not call it a recruiting funnel. Let's call it a talent funnel, because that's more in line with what it is. And I've marked with these orangey, yellow, special colored arrows all the places we can find better hires to make those outcomes happen, to get more direct and more referral hires and spend less money attracting the talent we need. If we go to the next slide, I listed them out. There are 6 steps, and we're going to run through them all today before I pass it over to Todd, and Todd's going to get into the technical stuff. So the first thing, if we jump to the next slide, is HR comp and ben. Now, I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but the trick is the recruiter is the expert in the talent market. Can we all agree on that? Can we all just understand that recruiters are better than anybody else in your company at understanding what talent is out there and how much it costs to bring them in? Now, most companies, especially larger companies, they treat recruiters as just, here's your rec, go nuts. Take your orders, go and do, go forth and do what you can. But in a good company where recruiting and HR and comp and ben and hiring managers are collaborating, the recruiter gets to bring their expertise to say, hey, the rec you're building is impossible. Not hard, not difficult, but physically impossible. There is no such person as that. And if I could find them, they'd want a lot more money for that job than what you think you're paying. I don't know where you're getting your expertise. I don't know where you're getting information, but that's what the recruiter should be doing. They should be coming in as talent consultants or talent experts. So the goal in this step is to, one, make sure that the recruiter has the opportunity to redefine the job, right? HR, comp, and ben, the hiring manager, they are happy to give recruiters insane expectations, because what does it matter to them, right? There's no skin off their back to hand the recruiter an impossible unicorn, a purple unicorn, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter to them. Go find it. In fact, when you can't find the impossible unicorn, their job is to yell at you and complain to your boss, which is unfortunate. So the goal here is for the recruiter to have a role in shaping the rec, to understand this is how it's going to cost, how much it's going to cost. This is where we're going to find them. This is how many people are in that. Are we going to have to poach them? If so, where are we going to have to poach them? What is this, if comp and ben is involved, maybe they level the job, the salary of the job. But if the recruiter comes in and says that job only happens in these 5 companies, let's say it's one of the big accounting companies or a big automotive company, and it's a much more precise understanding of the role, comp and ben is going to have to reset what their expectations are for salary. And that only happens when you collaborate. Next slide. The second step may be the most surprising, and that is the hiring step. And you might think, well, my job at the hiring stage is to hire the person. And that's true. Let's not kid ourselves. That is the job. But for every person you hire, you're probably saying thanks or no thanks to like a lot of other people. And honestly, if you were in a business where for every customer you brought on board, you had to piss off like 100 other people, you would not be in business for very long. But that's what's happening in recruiting. You say, okay, I'm going to pick this one person to hire and everybody else, thanks. I'm sorry you spent your time with us. I'm sorry you wasted your time in these interviews that we didn't hire you. I'm sorry you wasted your time filling out your application process, which let's be fair is not so smooth. I'm sorry you wasted and got your hopes up for that stuff. Best of luck next time. Not surprisingly, they walk away mad, as they should, as you would. They're frustrated. That makes perfect sense, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. If you look at the total population of people who are applying and don't see them as people begging for a job, but instead see them as people who have on some level bought into your company as a potential place to work, as an interesting place to work. And as you look at the talent sector and you look at different audiences, you understand that people who actually spend the 5, 10, 15 minutes it takes to apply, that's an investment of time. It suggests that they want to work there. If you treat them like dirt and just hand them a form letter when they're gone, or worse, ask them to come in for half a day and then give them no feedback and come on, don't be that person. But if that's what you do, you're going to make them all mad. You're going to poison the well and burn bridges. And no one's going to want to work with you. You know why? Because they're going to tell everybody else. If you're trying to hire a nurse and you make a bunch of nurses mad, you know who they're going to tell? A bunch of other nurses. And you have literally made the recruiter's job harder. Instead, don't just send them a pretty, nicer thanks but no thanks letter. Figure out if there are some of those people who you could keep warm, recycle, who you can look at again, who you can bring forth. If you've got 2 candidates that you thought were good enough to show up to the interview and spend a half a day with, and they were both pretty good and one edged the other out, don't throw the other out like trash. Keep them involved. Automatically assign them to other roles. Offer to say, look, we think you're great. You just got edged out. How do we use you? If you've spent the time invested, if you've seen the office and you've met the people and you liked the concept of working here, let's find a place. Now that doesn't just happen automatically. You have to really build a system that says, how do we keep you warm? How do we keep you excited? How do we make sure you understand that this next role is also going to be interesting? At the same time, you need to get hiring managers involved. I am always blown away by the number of hiring managers who say, oh, they were a second place finisher for another role. I don't want them. They just dismiss the opportunity, which is nuts. They pretend that there's always more fish in the sea, but there aren't. There's limited pools of talent out there that you have to tap into. So treating any of them as just, whatever, there's always more, is a great way to make your job harder. Next slide. Third one, how do you squeeze more juice from that lemon? So here's the deal. When the employee walks in the door for their first day or their second day, are they ever happier to be at work than that day? They're just so pleased as punch to walk in, to be a part of your company, to be part of a new challenge. Everything they see, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is just a great new challenge for them. It's like the opening credits for Mary Tyler Moore. It's just a wonderful place to be, right? Okay, use it. When they're super happy to walk in the door, buttonhole them, grab them by the lapels, drag them into a small office. And if you're that recruiter, you say, okay, you love the idea of working here? Great, I got these 10 recs I gotta fill. Who do you know who would love to work here? Who do you know who'd be excited to join you? Who do you know who you'd be excited to work with? And then not only do we figure out who we can talk to fill these roles, that new hire is gonna help involve the process. They're going to say, look, it's been an interview process. It's been a great first couple of days. They've been super excited. They want to talk to you. They love the new hire becomes a partner in the recruitment process, right? It makes the recruiter's job easier, but that doesn't happen if the recruiter literally says, oh, it's your first day. Welcome. I'm glad you got here. You're dead to me, which unfortunately for a lot of recruiters is kind of how they expect their job to be. So what you got to do is make sure you understand that new hire is an incredible new opportunity, an incredible resource for potential referrals. Next slide. Todd's saying something about pretending he doesn't remember Mary Tyler Moore. Of course he remembers Mary Tyler Moore. You all remember Mary Tyler Moore. I remember the Brady Bunch, but it's all reruns. Okay, moving on. Advocacy and referrals. Now this is the thing. I have a big bugbear about referrals because companies think the best way to get more referrals is to buy a bigger tool, buy a more cool tool, buy a phone mobile-based tool. Hey, I got a referral program. It's called My Phone. It's great. It's fantastic. No one uses it, but it's an incredibly expensive tool, and I'm thrilled to have it. Wah, wah. That never works. The trick for referrals and advocacy isn't the tool. Here's the deal. If you work at a company and no one wants to say nice things about your company, the tool does not make them want to say nice things about it. The tool just makes it a little easier. So instead of expending a lot of money to make a better tool, why, yes, Steve, I see you talking about Minnesota, that's right. Why not just focus on sparking excitement and desire for working there? Then it doesn't matter what tool you have. Now, the best way to make that happen, for my money anyway, and I've seen this work, in fact, I've done this and I've applied it, so it works, I know, is to think of referrals not as an expensive tool you have to buy, but as a process you can optimize. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you exactly what I mean. When you're going to do a new hire, or you have a new rec, and I'm going to pretend you're the recruiter in this case. Some of you are, some of you aren't. It's okay. Welcome to Pretend Land. You're the recruiter and you send an email to the hire manager saying the role is live. It's very easy to just put a period at the end of that line and say send. But this is a great opportunity to really start checking some boxes. And in fact, if you do this really, really well, you actually write this out for all your recruiters, embed it into whatever computer they have. So it's an automated email. They just have to fill in a couple little fields and send it out, right? So the email is this: hey, hire manager, the role is live and it's going to go on the job boards to remind the hire manager that you're doing your job and the job is going to be out there in the world where it can be seen. Good. You've done your job, recruiter. Now you're going to ask the hiring manager to tell their team about the open role. Why? Well, who do nurses know? Other nurses. Who do data scientists know? Other data scientists. Who do salespeople know? Other salespeople. If you're looking for a salesperson, don't talk to a recruiter, talk to salespeople, right? It's simple. It's so simple. The other problem is when we ask people referrals, what we usually do is we launch a big kind of like launch party. Hey, we have a new referral system. It's great, huge, massive, epic bonuses if you refer someone. And then 20 seconds later, staff have forgotten, or at least they forgot enough detail that they're like, wait, don't we have a referral program? I don't remember how to use it. Okay, well, I guess I'll ignore it. Sending this email to the hire manager saying, ask your team, what you do is you embed some very specific instructions. That is to say, you don't have to worry about what's the bonus, how does this work, what is the process? You embed it all in this email. What you're doing is focusing on the zero moment of consideration, the zero moment of truth. The second the hiring manager needs someone the most is the moment you say, hey, your job is now live. And at that point, you ask the hiring manager to flip the switch and say, hey, staff, if you know someone, here's what the bonus is if we hire them. If you want specific instructions, here's what you do. It's embedded in the instructions. You should also ask the hiring manager to post this to their own LinkedIn network. Again, salespeople know salespeople, nurses know nurses. So use their network and get them to collaborate with you on promoting that job. This email, if you don't get smart and just copy what's on the screen in front of you, will take you 3 minutes to write. It will take you another 3 minutes to embed in other recruiters' computers and say, this is a process. This, if it doesn't double your referral rates, it'll come close. This works magic. By asking at the right moment, at the right time, to the right people, it makes amazing things happen. Next slide. Alumni. So here's the thing. These people, they work there. They already know. You can't spin them. You can't BS them. They know. They saw it. They saw it happen. The good, the bad, the ugly, it doesn't matter. They know. And if they're leaving, you could see it one of two ways. You could say, ugh, jerk, get out. Or you could think, there's someone who is about to enter a whole new network of people I can't reach. And it would be fantastic if they said nice things about this company as a way of how they developed themselves and the work they worked on, the projects they worked on, the things they achieved to this new network. Treat them like alumni. How do you do that? Well, first off, I would establish a quick mini bonus, not a massive bonus like you do for your software developers, you know, your 4-figure, 5-figure software bonuses, but a simple one, a gift certificate, coffee, something simple, and just say, thank you for being part of our network. Thank you for being alumni. Thank you for referring someone. Establish a bonus program for that. Then build a group. LinkedIn or Facebook's a tough call. I think LinkedIn is more obvious because it's professional, and I think it makes more sense because you can actually say, I'm part of that group on each person's LinkedIn page. Facebook is just a better group software, and people tend to engage with it, but the decision is yours. And what you want to do is say, hey, talk about what it was like to work here, talk about what you missed. Just have them build a space where they can connect. The value therein is recruiters can then go to that network when they need someone. So for example, the recruiter has been given some sort of purple squirrel, some sort of nurse data scientist. They go talk to data scientist alumni and say, hey, thank you. You know, I know you used to work here. You get the score. You understand what we're all about. Maybe you could help me out. Maybe you could help me find someone amazing in your network. That person can be a connection. It can be a resource. That person can also promote that job to their networks. Recruiters can leverage that audience to say, share these roles. Also, do you know anybody who would fit this? Just use it as an extended network. And if we go to the next slide, we close the deal and say, what about turning those alumni into boomerangs? Now, it used to be that boomerangs were rare. It's not the case anymore. I know of many boomerangs now, especially relative to 10 years ago. But it's not necessarily every day, but there are a lot of them. And honestly, I think they're becoming more and more true. As the stigma of I left a company after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years kind of goes away, and it's no longer you're a betrayer, you've left us, how dare you, don't let the door hit your butt on the way out sort of situation. And it's more of like, I get it, you had to move to your next thing, that's fantastic, I get it. And if you treat them like alumni, if you treat them well, if you have pride in the work they did, if you say, look, you should work for us, look at, you know, Susan, she used to work here and now she's over at blah, 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 blah. She did amazing work and that got her to the next space. Use those alumni with pride. They become boomerangs. They realize that what they had was fantastic. The best part about boomerangs is not just that they're easier hires because they know you really well. It's that having learned your world and gone on to a new world, what they bring back is twice as valuable because they know you already and they also bring in all this other knowledge. What if they come from a competitor? Fantastic knowledge sharing, fantastic perspective that you should be tapping into. But again, you cannot have a boomerang until you treat your alumni well. Next slide. We wrap it up. Focus on post and pray. Focus on just, let's find the next new hire. Let's focus on getting 100 people to apply. That worked for a very, 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 very long time. Some might say, hi, how you doing? Too long. Some might say that what worked in 1950 and 1980 and 2010, maybe it's done. Maybe we need to be focusing on new sources of talent, new ways of leveraging it, to leverage our employer brand, to tell stories, to get people to hear about us, to learn about us, to love us, to fall in love with us so that they refer other people to us. Leveraging those tactics has some very, very clear impacts. The first two are that it lowers your expenses and it lowers your time to fill. And if that's not something you want, well, I'm not sure why you're on a webinar like this. But with that, that's my time. I'm going to pass the baton, the mic, the whatever over to Todd, and Todd's going to take you through some more details.
Thank you, James. That was so hitting the nail on the head from with respect to what I'm going to talk about. I'm just really going to go into like a little bit more about what our customers are doing to accomplish some of the things that you were just talking about. For example, you talked about how you handle people who are rejected. I'm just going to get into some more detail about what our customers are doing to do that. So you absolutely nailed it, but I'm going to just delve in deeper to how people are using our platform to do some of those things. And here's another look at where talent is coming from. And if you look at what stands out is that talent is coming from no one place, really. There's no dominant source. It's a few percent from universities. It's a few percent from job fairs. The dominant sources really are job boards, agencies, staffing, outsourced. What's going neglected, and you talked about this beautifully, is that gray area on the bottom right, candidate pools. 9% of talent coming from there. And those are the people who know you best. Those are the people who have expressed an interest in you. They're current employees, they're past employees, they're past applicants. I don't think it's the fault really of any recruiter. I think that recruiters know that they have 10, 50, 100,000 or more past applicants in an ATS or even in an HRMS in some ways, if we're talking about current employees. they have these people, they know that they're there, but they applied a year ago. And when you have a job open a year later, a lot of recruiters are thinking, I still don't have a good way to service these people. I don't have a good way to search for these people, match them up to a current job. And that's really where there's a disconnect. That's where recruiters are unfortunately at a loss through no fault of their own. With this 9% there. If you think about, if you kind of collate these sources, and you did this also, outbound agencies, sourcing tools, networks, headhunters. You go inbound on a career site. This is where most applicants are coming from, most hires are coming from. Again, existing talent pool, people who know you best, people who are most interested, most likely to take an offer, least passive, most ignored there in the lower right, amazingly enough. And when you look at where the spending is going, what you're spending the money on, almost all the spending is going to sources other than the existing talent pool. So big money spent on sourcing tools and licenses and commissions for agencies. Not a whole lot of attention given to the lowest cost sources, current employees, past applicants, employee referrals even. These sources are strangely enough, most ignored, best in many cases, most likely to take the job and to be interested in the company and to be engaged. What our customers are doing successfully is putting these all together. We call it a talent network. It's the idea that you can do one search and you're searching everything. You're searching past applicants, current employees, past employees, all of these external sources, the career fairs, job boards, resumes that came in from a virtual event. One search of all of these sources together, we call it a talent network. We're looking at our customers is very roughly about 200 times the size of your employee population, the number of employees you have. And explain those, if you look on the right there to explain those words, some of you know what that's all about, some of you don't. Talent rediscovery, that's the idea, and James talked about it, I've already talked about it. That's the idea that you have all of this talent in your ATS. It's sitting there, you don't really know how to like unlock it. AI technology can help show you, enrich those profiles of people who applied maybe a year ago, tell you how those people might fit into a current job, tell you what those people have been doing since, tell you what skills they've been adding, what jobs they've had since, how their education, their talents, their capabilities have enriched. In the time since they applied, it can kind of rediscover, unlock that talent. That's talent rediscovery there in the lower right. Talent experience over there in the upper right, I'll talk about also in some more detail. And right now what's happening is a lot of career sites have come so far in the last decade or so. They're all been recipients of so much attention, nice videos and photos of current employees and value propositions. And career sites have become very nice looking, but as most people here know, once a person goes and applies for a job on those career sites, that's when things tend to fall apart. You get to a search, and you don't really know where to search. It'll say like pick a department, you have no idea which department to pick. Or it'll say, you do know which department to pick. Oftentimes the job seeker ends up with results that don't match them. They end up setting up a job alert, they get their weekly job sent to them by email, they don't fit them. So this is kind of the issue with career sites is once you get past that lovely main page, what happens when you do a search? How can we improve that experience? One thing our customers have been doing very successfully and have greatly improved their click-through rates and greatly reduced their drop-off rates, which as you know are very high on career sites, is they've been having candidates upload a resume, or it could be a bio, it could be a CV or like a PDF of a LinkedIn profile. You just put on your computer and upload. Some of our customers have been having candidates upload these resumes. Then the candidates can see, oh, I fit into this company. Oh, here's a transparency. Here's how my capabilities fit into the capabilities they need. There's a match. I now have the confidence I'm going to shoot over my resume and say, I'm going to click on apply now that I've seen that I fit. And this has been really successful for our customers. it also, you know, if you've, most people here have heard of the diversity issue here, which is, there is that study, I think at Hewlett Packard, it's been written up at Harvard Business Review and everywhere else, that women, of course, are more likely to drop off a career site if they don't have all the capabilities listed. Men, more likely to go, yeah, I'll try, why not? This resume upload and matching addresses that issue, because by showing, our customers at least have found, by showing how people fit, by showing, hey, Todd, look, you actually have the capabilities to do this job, it gives people the confidence to know that they're going to progress in the process, not be ignored. So this is a diversity issue also on career sites. As I mentioned, some of our customers are having people upload a resume. Some cases they're doing the chatbot, where the chatbot has a little conversation, it guides you into pulling in your information and asking you your title and your company and whatnot, or resume upload. Then, as you see, the job candidate gets a nice visual look at how they fit. On the left, they see, here's where I'm a strong match in that business analyst job, here's where I'm a good match. And then on the right, you can see that there's transparency as to why in the world they are a match, what capabilities they have that actually fit. And it gives them the confidence to go ahead and just click on that pink, red, apply now button. This has been a big help in reducing drop-off rates, as I mentioned. There's a recruiter part of this. What does this look like to a recruiter? I wanted to talk about that. This whole idea of a talent network, this whole idea of talent experience, talent rediscovery. What is this all about on the back end for a recruiter? Let me just take a look at that. Recruiters begin the process, they have an open role. Instead of putting together a job description, which we know how vague those are, we're looking for someone passionate and all that, we're looking for a team player. Instead of doing just a job description, what recruiters do is they can be guided through a process where it pre-populates and they can modify it, capabilities that are needed for a role. So recruiters have an open role. Again, we can, the technology kind of guides them through the process. They don't have to start blank slate. And they can list, hey, this person needs to be capable of auditing or SAP, planning, budgeting, reporting, and so on. And by starting with this capability list, it helps match them with what I just talked about, which are these resumes that are going to come in. As you can see up there on the upper right, by calibrating this role, you can see who's likely to respond, how many candidates you have in this pipeline, and so on. You can even play around with it to achieve more diversity. You can go, oh, it looks like my diversity would be a little low. Now that I think about it, project management has absolutely nothing to do with this job. I don't know why that's in there. What if I didn't include that? And you could see what that does to the diversity. Maybe that helps, maybe not. Hypothetical, but you can play around with your capabilities, focusing on what's actually necessary to do the role and see how that improves diversity. That's a really valuable feature there. This is what happens. Recruiter gets a list of whose capabilities match the capabilities they need for that open role that we just talked about. Brian, of course, is the most matched here. And if you look at what's interesting here in the fifth column, where it says last application, job board, career site. This is that idea of the talent network that I talked about, and James actually talked about in a sense. This is the idea that you're taking all these people, whether it's a referral, external source, like a job board, someone who came inbound through a career site. This is the idea that you've listed your capabilities. Whoever matched them, regardless of the source, they're all going to be listed in order in who's a stronger or a good match, with no extra weighting because they're passive, no extra weighting because we went out and sourced them at a competitor because an agency found them. You can also conduct tailored outreach. What does that mean? So right now, oftentimes what happens is you, the candidate, you go look for a job at a career site. You don't find what you want. You set up your job alert. Every week you get a job alert, usually not the jobs you want. Every month, typically, I get a lot of these. We all get a lot of these. We've tested them all out. But every month or two even, you get your newsletter from the company with what the company's been up to, right? Well, so often that's just one size fits all, may or may not be interesting to you. But what you can do now is you can tailor those communications. So say someone is interested in veterans topics or diversity or IT or something else. They can get communications that relate to them. They can get blog posts, videos related to them. And that's been a big help to our customers in increasing their response rates. Also, you could do the same, by the way, on the career site. Instead of putting up these fancy career sites with videos and blog posts and photos that are, again, kind of a one-size-fits-all approach that in many cases are very nice looking, but not individualized, not personalized, you can actually personalize a career site. So someone going to a career site can actually view who they would work with based on them, such as veterans, blog posts, videos, based on their own interests, an individualized career site and individualized communications. And your pipeline too, you can view your pipeline as a recruiter on the back end after you've collected these resumes or these bios. Here you've got your list of positions. You can see where they are in the process. Have they been screened, interviewed on site in a few cases? They've been interviewed on the phone. Have they gone to the hiring manager and so on? You have a look at your pipeline. Importantly, you can look at the diversity pipeline. Right now, a lot of companies have a diversity issue. This is something a lot of customers of ours are off the charts asking about now. And the problem with some companies, they're not really sure where the issue is. We have a problem. We don't really know how to solve it because we don't know what part of the process we're falling through. So with diversity analytics, you can see, oh, are people with disabilities falling out at the interview stage or the top of the funnel and so on. Actually, the AI can know in most cases what diversity category people fall in, and they can kind of fill in the pipeline here with analytics. Where are we challenged? Where are we having problems? Is it, again, the interview, the offer, on-site interview, virtual interview? Is it the sourcing issue? So analytics can show you if and where you have a diversity issue, and that's really the first step in addressing that diversity issue. All told, the whole goal of this, going back to what I said originally, what James talked about originally, is we're getting hires from the sources that are toughest, most expensive, and people who know you least. This flips all of that on your head, on its head, not on your head. You're spending now the money and the time, really not spending the money and the time on these external sources, these job boards and these agencies and these commissions, these expensive annual licenses of networks, and instead focusing on the people who know you the best and who are most interested, current employees, past applicants, employee referrals. And in many cases, it's way, way, way more effective because the technology is focusing on the capabilities of people. So not just employee referrals, but what employee referrals do we want to focus on? What are their capabilities and how do they fit into current jobs? Which current employees fit into new jobs they can move internally? This kind of system has a much higher response rate. So you're getting a much higher quality of hire, much lower cost per hire. If you look at just a few of the results that our customers are seeing up in the upper left, a lot of them are saving time, which is ultimately the goal of this webinar, not just for companies that have smaller recruiting teams, although unfortunately that's the case in many cases now. But I've actually seen companies that have not had smaller recruiting teams, but have been able to move up recruiters into more high value jobs, more jobs that involve recruiting, what they are best at, what they want to do. And spending less time on like the screening. Oh, I have 300 resumes. How do I go through them? I have 150, 400 resumes. That capability match I showed earlier, that's really a huge time saver and can move recruiters into higher value jobs. Much more employee referrals. I talked about that. It's not just doing a referral. It's finding the capabilities of each referral and where do they fit and how do they fit. On the left, at 91, you're going to see in a system like this a lot less money spent on external sourcing tools, And then going to the bottom, lower time to fill. Importantly, very importantly, another thing here is skilling, reskilling, upskilling. I've heard a lot of different words for it. This is the idea that you have companies, for example, who are into healthcare, who want to transition into more telehealth, education, want to do more virtual. Companies selling business clothes, they want to figure out what to do. Do we sell more casual clothes? All that kind of thing, you know, restaurants, we do more delivery. All of this requires different capabilities. All of this means the mix of people needed to succeed is different than the mix that's typically in a workforce. Or at the very least, companies don't know who's got the capability to do the new skills they need. And that's been one of the most powerful results we've seen, is companies being able to take a look at the capabilities of their current workforce, even referrals, even contingent workers, and seeing which people have the capabilities to do the jobs we now need, like telehealth. What employees maybe are doing something different right now have those skills for, say, telehealth? Which contingent workers, referrals, past employees, past applicants, that's that talent rediscovery thing I talked about before. Which of them have the capabilities we need to reskill, upskill, move into these new businesses like restaurant delivery versus restaurant in person? That's been a really powerful result as well. And it's actually been super nice to see, because a lot of companies, instead of laying off when they've had to move into new areas, have been able to see through the technology showing what capabilities people have to move into new roles, have been able to save a lot of jobs. Those are a few of our customers, are probably 20 times that many, 15 times that many. I just put up a few here, but they're really in every industry: mining, healthcare like Dexcom, which is in the dialysis field out of San Diego, and financial services, technology, airlines, and more. That's James and I. James, I think he mentioned he sends out a weekly newsletter. I like it. I actually read it cover to cover, if that's a thing you can do in a weekly newsletter. So I suggest that one. And that's me. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find, of course, James on LinkedIn. And with that, I think William is going to handle some thoughts from here as well, if you are still there.
Yes, still here. And I'm going ahead and kind of publish this back out here for people that have questions. Please do put that in the Q&A section that we have there on the Zoom. A couple questions that brought up from your presentations, both of you. Outside of capturing or handling an applicant or candidate in the moment of going through the selection process and saying, you know, no, not now, or they are the runner-up, if you will, we'd like to come back and be able to come back to them. How have you both seen out there in the industry search improve as far as going after or going back through one's resume database to go back and get those gems, or, if you will, rediscover? How has search improved, or how is that being handled? Because I continue to hear a lot of concerns and complaints that it's just woefully inadequate, not automated, and or just not helpful to that end. And so hence, why not go back and post and pray? It's easier, if you will.
Yeah, my short answer.
Going back to poster. Todd, please take it. I can't talk.
I'll give a short answer, and then I'll turn it quickly over. The short answer is agree 100%. That's what we're doing, is agree 100%. So it's not working as is. So companies cannot find the right people in their current applicant tracking systems. That's one of the reasons why these new AI systems have worked to not just match people's capabilities, but also to see what they've been doing since they applied, and then to match. If those systems worked, then you probably wouldn't find as many of the new companies that would have started up the last few years. And it's not so much the fault of the applicant tracking systems in a way, because they were designed to do something. They were designed to be like systems of record and keep track of who applied, and make sure that you kept the resume on file and stuff. I don't think the very original idea, I'm assuming, when you go back to the 15 years ago, whatever, I don't think the original idea was like, oh, let's find a way for companies to use technology to match someone who applied a year ago with the next job a year later. I don't think that was probably the original design. So in their defense, they're kind of innocent. That wasn't the goal of their systems. Your thoughts, James?
Yeah, I think the developer who slapped a front-facing web interface on the ATS and cashed the check, I think they were a genius, but unfortunately led us down a path of ATSs were not a systems designed to be touched, let alone seen by non-HR professionals, and yet somehow pushing them out there, it's a horrible idea. Here's a trick. We live in a day and age where everybody knows everything. I know how much my neighbor's house cost. I know how much insurance costs at 4 different companies. Transparency is everywhere. And if you don't think that that transparency has seeped into how people perceive your company, you're missing the point. And why does that matter? Well, because ultimately talent has to figure out where they want to put their effort. They're not just looking for a job. They're not looking for a paycheck. They're looking for a sense of purpose, or maybe they're looking for a sense of prestige. They're maybe looking for a sense of impact. We're looking for something in that job. Nobody's really looking for at least nobody that you're looking for, nobody you're desperate to hire is looking for a job and a paycheck. They have to choose you. And if you don't give them a reason to choose you, if you don't tell them a story, that you don't give them engaged with something beyond the job posting, and let's spend another hour explaining how bad job postings are for a while. By the way, you want your ATS to work? Make better job postings. Step 1, moving on, separate conversation. You have to help give them a reason to engage with you. So if you've got a candidate who showed up and gave the barest glimmer of, yeah, sure, I'm kind of interested in that, and gave you their personal information, squeeze all the value out of that thing you can. If they're vaguely interested, make them fall in love with you so that they never want to leave. That's your job. And that is a change. That is a big sweeping change from, say, 5-10 years ago. If you're not comfortable with that, enjoy posting and praying. And I will enjoy beating the pants off you every day before lunch.
Speaking of that, there's not only the discovery aspect of it, there's also making sure that you do have the current data on a person, because as you know, the resume is quote unquote as fresh as it, I guess, was put into the system that day, and that's it. And it's immediately becomes archaic in the archive. There's discussion around how to integrate, and I know there's some tools out there that certainly do that with regards to current activity or more current profiles, more current versions of resumes. And I don't know that, I'm not saying that any of us have any particular legal bending here, but how have solutions come up with regards to addressing privacy issues around what I can ask for updates from people on, or what people can do and update, and whether I want to go and update stuff in your ATS or not? How do you see tools either encouraging or enabling that sort of up-to-date amount of data and still, from a privacy control standpoint, honor the individual?
I think there's 2 parts to that. First off, any recruiter worth their salt should be on Reddit and Twitter and Twitch and list the channels. They should be out there looking at what people are doing and what they're saying and looking for someone interesting. Recruiters who don't do that are passive or waiting for people to apply. They're not going to get very far. You need to go source, you need to go find, you need to go engage. So being public or not public isn't the conversation. Everything's out there, go and find it. The question is, if your legal team dictates that the second it shows up in the ATS, it becomes a legal document of record, well, then there's a whole other kettle of fish, and please involve your own local lawyers. Don't listen to me. I'm not a lawyer. But I think they're 2 different conversations. And I think when recruiters don't want to do something, they tend to glue things together, the good and the bad, and they say, oh, I can't do it. Legal said I can't do it. You can absolutely go find that information. LinkedIn is there for a reason. We use it every day to find this information. Does that mean it ends up in the system of record? That's a different thing.
Right. Okay. Excellent. One more question with regards to providing content. It is one thing, for somebody to apply and express interest, but in order to maintain contact outside of permission, what are we finding are the best ways to offer something value in return as far as part of that relationship, besides just saying, hey, I have another job for you? Any ideas or suggestions around that? Because I know there's lots of companies that don't have somebody that's developing a lot of content just for talent acquisition. I'm not saying it has to be TA specific, but maybe some ideas about how else people can leverage content in that respect.
I would go back to, and by the way, there's a question. I don't know if it came directly to me or if you're seeing it also. I can read it in a minute, but I'd go back to what I was talking about earlier is that if you're a veteran, for example, you very, very likely are not seeing content related to veterans, but you're very interested. Almost all veterans I've ever met are very, I don't know if you are, William, but are you a veteran?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Almost all of them I've ever met are very, very into veterans topics, and like they want to work with veterans. They want their company, their future employers to be like veteran friendly. They're into that. And very few of them are ever served up anything about themselves. But when you can, this is what I talked about earlier, is you can serve them who you'd be working with that relates to you, what the company's doing as it relates to Carry the Load, which is a Veterans Day in, I think, May, what the company is doing with respect to Operation Gratitude or whatever you call it. If you can serve them that stuff, that is just so much more powerful than your average veteran just getting a bunch of jobs that don't fit them, and then a blog post that might be very nice, but just doesn't resonate with them. By the way, are you seeing the question here?
No, go ahead and read that one.
And it's not a short one, but I'll read it quickly. So I know we have a couple minutes.
We got time.
If recruiting leaders started chasing all the shiny objects available to us today, ATS, CRM, marketing, branding, job posting, LinkedIn, social media, recruiting analytics, RPA, AI, machine learning, text, interview schedule, the ask for capital investment is going to skyrocket. How much is too much? What's the critical path to an effective and efficient technology solution?
Sounds like what's a good viable stack.
Right.
I so hate the obsession we have with what's our stack and what's your stack. The best stack is what, I mean, the photographers have a rule, the best camera is the one you have in your hand. So whatever you're working with right now is the best place to start. Are there plugins that make it better, that you can use it to extend the features? Yes, absolutely. But everybody lusts after everybody else's tech stack. And I think it's completely the wrong answer. Tell a good story, engage people with it, figure out the best way to promote it. So many of the best ways to push stories out, to engage people are free. And we are so focused on how do I scale this up? And I think this comes from recruiters assuming that because they have 100, 200 people apply, they have to do everything at some sort of massive scale. The truth is you want 2 people to apply to every job. 1 person you hire and 1 person you say, you were great, but I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go someplace else. Anything else is a waste of time. So recruiters' fascination on extending the pipeline, extending the funnel size, it's wrong-minded. It's about how do I make 1 person fall in love with this company, this brand, this opportunity, and get them on board. Everything else is wasted energy.
Yeah, I know.
One thing I would say is, if you look at like the parallels between like with sales and marketing, if you were thinking about like buying a sales or marketing tool, you wouldn't just stop with like buying a bunch of leads. In fact, like a bunch of leads you might think you might not even know like how good those are. It might seem kind of spammy, like, hey, Todd, we'll send you 10,000 HR leads for $1,000. They all went to conferences. Like, it just sounds kind of spammy. It doesn't sound very productive. But there are all these marketing and sales tools that take information on leads and on your prospective customers who could be purchasers of your refrigerator or your airline tickets or whatever, and they make them intelligent, and they tell you about the buyer, and they tell you like who might buy and what their position in the company is, and all kinds of information about that. And companies are buying those tools, like they're finding the intelligence very valuable in the sales and marketing process. And I think those tools are now entering the talent acquisition and talent management process. So instead of just like laying people off, you can now see, oh, these people could be redeployed elsewhere. Or instead of just going to a temp firm and spending $1 million to find all kinds of people who know Spanish or Portuguese who can build a website or something, those people may be in your own company. You don't have to spend $1 million on the temp firms. So I don't think that, I think it's very logical that this kind of intelligence that you see in like sales and marketing should be applied to recruiting and to talent management as well.
Yeah, and that makes it a quality game, not a quantity game. And anything that makes it a quality game, to me, is the exact right way to go.
Yeah, with what you were sharing there, James, made a lot of sense. I often talk with people saying, hey, you should make sure you have what you're trying to do mapped out in kind of a workflow or storyboard side. and then figure out what either covers the most or most effective or is needed at various different spots, telling the story, filtering, prioritizing, whatever that may be. But yeah, if you walk into that HR technology supermarket hungry, yeah, a lot of things look good to buy, but more calories, less filling is not the best answer, right? So great. Thank you so much, James and Todd. Appreciate your time being here today. Thank you for what you shared with us. Very thought-provoking and some good humor too. Folks, as we indicated here earlier in the programming notes, we have this recorded. We will be sending out a link to this file so that you can enjoy it if you've registered, as well as we'll be sending you a slide deck PDF version for this. Please note for our next webinar is coming up on a Wednesday, August 26th, 11:30 Central Time. It's entitled Build a Stronger Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Recruiting Strategy. If you'd like to learn more or sign up for that, please go to atapglobal.org. Look under the Learning tab for the top right-hand page as you come to the website, and you can check out the webinars that we have there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making this webinar such a great event, everybody. Oh, and please note that there'll probably be a survey at the end of the webinar because we love feedback, so please feel free to do that. Take care. Have a great week.